يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. I just wanted to remind myself and all of you, we are in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that if you think about it, this is where everyone wants to be. And why do I say that? And if you think, what does everybody want in life? What does everybody generally want?
Peace.
Peace. So we find that where? Here.
Yeah.
What else?
Satisfaction. Money. Health.
Success, wealth. لما ينادي المؤذن يقول حي على الفلاح, come to success. Huh? As soon as you enter this masjid, three things happen. Any masjid, any house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, three things happen. Instinctively, you are categorized as a mu'min. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said that those who congregate in the masajid are believers. Sah? Instinctively, we can't, if someone walked in right now, we've never seen them before, would we ask them, are you a Muslim? Are you a mu'min? La. Instinctively, automatically. وَلَوْ كَانَ فَاجِرٍ. We don't know what he was doing or she was doing outside. We don't know. As soon as they're here, they become mu'min with us. Sah? What happens when they're believers? إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. So they build a bond. They form a bond, and not just any bond, an unbreakable bond. A bond that you can't buy with money. Doesn't matter if you belong to a tennis club, a soccer team, a basketball club. Doesn't matter if you're with this crew or that crew, with this gang or that gang. This club here is an unbreakable one. إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. يعني فعلا, there is nothing like this bond. Because we don't categorize each other based on where we're from, what we're wearing, what we've done, what we had for dinner. لا. إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. هذا شيء عظيم. This is something, and I was thinking about it just after the salah, because when I walked in, I realized one thing right away. هذا المكان يعز فيه الكبير. We respect our elders. ويكرم فيه الصغير. And the youngsters are welcomed. As soon as my son entered, Shaykh al-Mu'adhin, he went to hug him. Where does that happen? Which other places this happen? Huh? Where? At the mall? At the school? Did you ever walk in and your teacher embraced you and said, oh, welcome? This was old. هذا كان زمان. Now it's a business. صح? This is the only untainted place. The house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فلذلك, I just wanted to share that with you, لأن you must appreciate the ni'mah that you are in. إنها نعمة لا تقدر بالثمن. And there are people that would wish and yearn to be in your place right now, and they can't be. يا إما منعوا سجنوا ظروف. They're in the hospitals. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give all the believing men and women shifa. Maybe they're in prison. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala free all the prisoners. Maybe they're being attacked. ولكن نحن في نعمة. We are in a blessing that, subhanallah, we have to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for, and we have to acknowledge. For the young brothers in the back, if you want to go on your phones, you can go to the gym, no problem. Or if you want, you can share with us whatever message you're reading or tweet. Can I have a look? No? You know, one time I did a halaqah in Richmond, and I asked the brothers, I said, just so you know, I'm very frank and blunt. If I see you on your phone, I'm going to ask you to come up front and show us what you're looking at, because maybe it's more interesting than what I'm saying. Maybe. Yeah, maybe it's more interesting. So you can show me. And subhanallah, if you want to know someone, just have a look at their phone. But there's a hukm, shar'i, and this is maybe will surprise you. For the parents who have children, if your child is above the age of puberty, Are you allowed to spy on them and to take their phone without their permission and to look at it? What do you guys think the ruling is?
I think yes.
Yes?
I think.
Okay. What about for a husband and wife, vice versa? Are you allowed to spy on?
No.
But your wife is an adult and you're an adult, so your son or daughter is an adult. So how come it's a
That's a privacy, I guess.
privacy? Yes. So you're not allowed. You're not allowed. The majority of the ulama were asked. There is a difference of opinion. If there is a darura, obviously, if there is a specific circumstance, yes. But in general, you're not allowed, because ma kana sitrullahi alayh, whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has concealed upon this person, who's an adult, by the way, an adult, not a child. And children should not have phones. I believe if you can't grow a mustache or a beard, you shouldn't have a phone. That's why.
What do you consider as an adult? Above 16 or above 18? Because
there is no age.
Exactly. Right?
Tamiz, والبلوغ, they're very. Tamiz is when a child can distinguish between al-jamra or tamra, which is they can distinguish between a burning coal and a date.
Right.
That's not good enough to give them a phone, okay? But al-bulugh is when an individual reaches a level of wa'i, of comprehension, that mas'ool, he becomes mas'ool or she becomes mas'ool, like they're held accountable. This
Right.
is when the responsibility is greatest. I highly advise for the parents who have young children to not give them phones until they have the ability to carry a responsibility.
Exactly.
Huh?
Right.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. We are still continuing with the seerah of the Salaf, the seerah of the Nubala, the biography of the pious predecessors. And tonight, inshallah, I have an individual who we actually mentioned once before in the biography of Sa'id ibn Jubayr, rahmatullah alayhi, if you guys remember who Sa'id ibn Jubayr was. And we mentioned him very briefly in passing, and I wanted to give him a moment to shine, لأن رحمة الله عليه رحمة واسعة، عالم جليل، a tabi'i, who was a scholar of hadith, a scholar of fiqh, and he was labeled as Imam al-Qurra fil Kufa. This man, I can't say enough about him, but I'll tell you one incident. During the ahd of Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, Abdul Malik, he appointed him as his messenger to the Emperor of Rome. So he sent a message to the Emperor of Rome, and he was the messenger. Now remember, Rome was an empire established for hundreds of years, powerful, very well orchestrated and organized, developed. And here Islam is on the rise, and here we're trying to expand to that region to spread our might. And who does Abdul Malik ibn Marwan choose? He chooses Amir bin Sharaheel Al Sha3by, who is the man of the hour tonight. This scholar, he was sent with the message of Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. And it was reported that the Emperor of Rome, he knew about the Muslims, how devoted they are to worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they would not bow to anyone or anything except for Allah. So he had his guards make the entryway shorter. So that way, Sha'bi, we're going to refer to him as Imam Sha'bi, rahmatullahi alayhi, he would have to hunch down as if though making a ruku' to enter. So when it was his cue to go in, Sheikh Amir bin Sharaheel Al Sha3by, he saw the doorway was lower than normal. So he looked, and huwa fatin, he's very, very intelligent. He knew what the emperor was trying to do, trying to put him in a position as if though to bow upon entry to the emperor of Rome. What did he do, rahmatullah alayh? He turned his back and he came in backwards. The emperor of Rome, as soon as he did that, he said, we're not dealing with a normal guy here. This ain't your average Joe. This guy has wit, intellect. He was a man, he had a way with words. If you put him in any predicament, he can talk his way out of it. And such was the case. He had a very lengthy conversation with the Emperor of Rome, and to the point where the Emperor of Rome, u'jiba bih, he was impressed with him, amazed with him. And he asked him, he says, are you of the lineage of the Khalif? Are you his brother? You have to be somebody of high status. He said, no, I am just a regular guy. من تواضعه, from his humbleness, he said, I'm just a regular guy. And that's what he saw himself as. Even though he was a renowned scholar, he said, I'm just a regular man. So the Emperor of Rome, he wrote a message back to Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. And he gave it to Sha3by, rahmatullah alayhi. He says, take this back to your leader. He took it back and he gave it to Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. And he didn't read it, obviously, because this is an amana. So when Abdul Malik opened it and he read it, he says, أَتَدْرِي مَا كَتَبَ لِي? He says, do you know what he wrote? And Imam Sha3by, he said, لا يا أمير المؤمنين, this is an amana. I'm not going to look into what he wrote. Again, it's private. So he said to me, I'm amazed at a people that have taken you as a leader when they have this man amongst them. This is a point to make a remark in the sense that this is a non-believer who's an emperor of Rome, who obviously has seen wise men and scholars and people of prestige and eloquence, and he noticed that Imam Sha3by is a person unlike any other. So he wrote that to see, this is to make a point against the Khalifa, at the same time to elevate the status of Sha3by. So when Abdul Malik said this, Imam Sha3by, you know what he said? He said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, had he seen you and spoke to you, he would have never said that. You see how eloquent and how wise he was? Because right away, if Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, he saw this as a threat, he would say, kill him. And the Umayyads were very shaky people in the sense, quick on the sword, as they say. So this was the eloquent nature, how he responded, and he calmed and subdued the situation. He was born, rahmatullah alayh, during the Khilafah of Umar radiallahu anhu warḍah. And there's a difference of opinion as to exactly when, but some say that he was born within the 9th year of the Khilafah or the 6th year. The rajih is that he was born 6 years into the Khilafah of Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu warḍah. And as I said and I mentioned, he was a muhaddith. فنقل الحديث عن الصحابة رضوان الله عليهم. He took the hadith from the Sahaba directly. Sahaba such as Abi Huraira, Anas ibn Malik, Abdullah ibn Abbas, Aisha radiallahu anha warḍaha al-Mu'mineen, Abi Dar, so many, 50 plus 50 plus Sahaba. This was a man that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala designated and chose to carry the legacy of the hadith from the Sahaba radwanullahi alayhim. His lineage, his father was an Arab. However, his mother was from Persia. His mother was from Persia, and she was actually from the Sabi. She was from the Sabi. Now, when describing him, they said he was very thin, very thin. He wasn't a very thick man or very strong. He was very frail and thin. And when they asked him, they said, how come you're so thin? He said, because when I was in my mother's womb, there was a twin, الذي زاحمني. He said, I had a twin in the womb that, زاحمني, he took my space, so I didn't get to eat enough. Subhanallah. And he was very witty, by the way. The way he spoke, when I say witty, I mean in a good way. He had a very eloquent way of speaking that people liked and enjoyed. And he used to dye his beard with henna, with reddish dye. This was Sha3by rahmatullahi alayh. Az-Zuhri rahmatullahi alayh, he said there are 4 scholars in our era. Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib, who we mentioned before, Sheikh Hassan al-Basri, who we also mentioned before, ومكحول في دمشق, who we haven't mentioned, والشعبي في الكوفة rahmatullahi alayh. 4 notable scholars from the Tabi'een. Ibn Sirin, who we mentioned last week, Muhammad ibn Sirin rahmatullahi alayh, he said, if you want to take your knowledge from Sha3by. Take your knowledge from this great Imam. For I witnessed when he was giving halaqat, the Sahaba were alive and around him. And at the same time, he was giving halaqat, he was giving fatawat. This was a tabi'i. He never saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him this great ability to uphold knowledge and to share it. And speaking of the ability to uphold knowledge, he, rahmatullah alayh, had a memory unlike anyone before. He's the one who's attributed to the famous saying, he says, Mundu hayati, he says, my entire life, lam ada' sawda'a fi bayda, meaning I have never written anything in my life. Never did he write, meaning never did he put ink to paper. Lam ada' sawda'a fi bayda. He never put black ink on white paper. So some of you are saying, did he have a tablet, or how did he do this? He also said, never did someone speak to me and I had to ask them to repeat, or did I forget what they said. This shows you something, and this is something we lack today. And I always say this to my colleagues, to my friends, to my kids. If someone is speaking to you, pay very close attention. Be attentive. Give them the sense of respect and the time. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he would speak to someone, he wouldn't do this, and he would turn his entire body, face the person, give them the respect, the time. Nowadays, we are quick to just say many things and speak out of desire and speak out of opinion. That's why we have lost our way with words and lost our method of absorption. He says, never did someone speak to me and then I had to ask them to repeat it. This was never happened. And he said, وَلَمْ يُحَدِّثْنِي أَحَدٌ بِحَدِيثٍ. Never did someone give me a hadith that I did not know for 20 years. 20 years of his life, he said, I never heard a hadith that I did not know. وَكَانَ يَحْضُرْ مَجَالِسِ الْعِلْمِ وَالْأَحَادِيثِ. He would sit in the circles of knowledge, and they would share a hadith, various narrations. He says, all of them I know. And what kind of memory is this? And when you think about this, this is something that is lost. Why? Because we're so caught up. Everybody's on their phones. And you become like a schizophrenic who is constantly bombarded by videos and feeds and stories and pictures and this and ads. So you become bombarded by it. You're going to have an epileptic seizure because you're flipping through the scrolls of Instagram and shorts and all this, and TikTok, and it's just so rapid. You're just overwhelmed. You're overwhelmed. And at the end, if I ask you, what did you benefit? What did you benefit? Nothing. Nothing. Because it's constant, it's redundant, but there's no substance. There's no substance. So I ask myself before any of you to put this ala, this device, this is a responsibility. And wallahi, it will abuse you if you do not have the strength to control yourself. Because if you're trying to take your ilm from TikTok and YouTube and this and that and these quick feeds and these, this quick fix, everything is just press a button, I get it quick, press a button, I get another thing quick, you're not going to get far. You're not going to get far. And this is why the world has yet to see another Sha3by, rahmatullah alayh, or another Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn Taymiyyah, rahmatullah alayh, this was a man who would read an entire book composed of hadith with riwayat, with sanad. He would read it once, put it aside, it's logged. It's permanently here. Permanently there. Imam al-Bukhari memorized over 700,000 hadith. Memorized. Come on. Where are these men? And I'm speaking to myself because we're constantly trying to entertain ourselves, trying to fool ourselves in effect, because we're just going through rubbish. And when you have too much clutter and too much rubbish, how can you retain that which is beneficial? It becomes lost. It becomes lost in a pile of waste. Please, if you want to obtain the ilm, and if you want to remember what you're obtaining, follow the guidance of the Salaf. These men, they would devote their life to al-ilm, and they would give it the due respect and the due honor. And another tip to retain knowledge, because many of us forget. This is min طبع الإنسان, يعني سمي الإنسان من النسيان. We forget, but what we forget is too much, and it's because of our sins. الذنوب تؤثر على الذاكرة. Your sins will actually affect your memory. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, يعني واتقوا الله ويعلمكم الله. When you fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you put your fear and your hope and you recognize and you acknowledge Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will teach you. Allah Azza wa Jal will teach you. He said, rahmatullah alayh, he says, فَحْفِظْ فَكُلُّ حَافِظٍ إِمَامٍ. Remember and remind yourself, memorize, because this is what leads to a leader. This is what leads to a leadership position of knowledge. And he also was noted to say, what I forgot from the ilm that I had obtained would make a man a scholar. يعني من العلم الذي نساه يعني. If one man remembered, or he gave that knowledge to one man, he would become a scholar. That was sufficient enough for him. يعني شيء عجيب. And he said, rahmatullah alayh, he says, the least of my knowledge, the smallest category is poetry, shi'r. And we're talking about good poetry here, poetry of taqwa and poetry of islah. He says, and if you wished, anshudukum shi'ran shahran. And if you wanted me to share the poetry that I've memorized, I could share it for 1 month straight. 1 month straight. And by the way, poetry is very easy to memorize because it has rhythms and rhymes, and it plays with your emotions. Even good shi'r. I know for me, when I began my journey in ilm, shi'r was so easy because it spoke to me. It was very relevant, and it rhymed, and some of it had a story. You could retain that, but not 1 month. No. 1 month, he said, I can recite poetry for 1 month straight. That's the least of my knowledge. يعني ما أدراك الفقه والعلوم والحديث. يعني سبحان الله. These were men, rahmatullahi alayhim wa jazahumullahu khayra. He was asked once, and غالبا, the majority of the ulama, the true ulama, when they answer concisely. He was asked a mas'ala, and he did not know the response. He said, لا أعلم. I don't know the response to this. So the man, he persisted and he insisted. He says, فَقُلْ مِنْ, يعني, say from your opinion, give us just an idea. What do you think of the mas'ala? Well, maybe you've come across something, you heard something, and this has happened to me many times. It probably happened to you. When somebody tells you, what do you think about Bitcoin? What's the hukm al-shar'i? And then you say, Allahu a'lam, but, I think it's... The man asked Imam Shafi for his opinion. You know what he said? Hashakum. He says, piss on my opinion. Meaning my opinion is worthless. And like I said, he was very witty, very sharp, very blunt. He said, my opinion is worthless. Why would you ask me for my opinion? And he said, and he was noted and quoted to have said, he says, لا أدري نصف العلم. لا أدري نصف العلم. To say that I don't know is half of knowledge. Half of knowledge. And this is a characteristic of the ulama. Of the ulama. Because if you go to the du'at, the YouTube sheikh and the scholars for dollars, they'll give you the answer. No problem. تبي فتوى تفضل هاك. But you go to عالم جليل رباني. يعني خاصة المسائل, the questions and the fatawa of the new age fatawa, they will tell you لا أدري, the majority of the time, until they have a consensus amongst themselves. Or they will say اسأل غيري, ask someone else, I am not of that knowledge. This is the characteristic of the ulama. Rahmatullahi alayhim rahmatan wasi'ah. Imam al-Sha'bi was involved during the fitna of the Qurra. Remember when we mentioned the fitna of the Qurra, الذين خرجوا ضد الحجاج بن يوسف الثقفي في فتنة ابن الأشعث, when they came out to overthrow al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf. He was involved and he was with the Jama'ah. And as we mentioned in the past, al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi, he overwhelmed them. This was the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he went after anyone that was with Ibn al-Ash'ath. And amongst them was a Sha'bi who fled. He fled in order to safeguard his life. The years passed, and al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, he was calling for the futuhat and jihad in Persia. And he said, whoever goes and joins the ranks of the mujahideen, then he is forgiven, ma'foon an. So Imam al-Sha'bi, he said, this is my opportunity. I wish to be forgiven, I wish to be pardoned. I just want to go back to normal. So he went and he joined the sufuf of the mujahideen, and he was spotted. And al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, he says, chain him up and send him back to me. And he khalif al-ahd. He said, whoever goes for jihad, he's pardoned. This was al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf. He was a zalim. When he went to him, and you remember what he did to Sa'id ibn Jubair, rahmatullahi alayhi. When he went to him, he says, bring him in. And he's bringing him in. He's a alim jaleel, a respected scholar of his time. He's chained up, and he says, La ahlan wa la marhaban bik. He says, no greetings, no blessings upon you. I don't even want to see you. Look what you have done. I raised you and I put you on his pedestal, and you became known to the people, and I promoted you in our khilafah, honored you, and then you go against me. And Imam al-Sha'bi is silent, in chains with his head down. And al-Hajjaj, this angered him. He says, تكلم, say something. Say something. What's your hujjah? فقال أصلح الله الأمير. The first words, أصلح الله الأمير. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make you righteous, O Amir. And then he says, وَكُلُّ مَا قُلْتُ حَقٍّ. Everything you have said is true. Every word of it. You see, sometimes it's better not to argue. And I tell this to my son. If you argue, it makes it worse. It makes it worse. Because you're not ready to argue. So don't argue. Just admit and agree. And then he said the words, and I mentioned this before. He said, اكتحلنا بعدك السهر وتحلسنا الخوف ولم نكن في ذلك بررة أتقياء ولا فجرة أقوياء. He said, I can't even translate it in English, you have to pardon me. He says, English is a very primitive language, by the way. English is very primitive. You need maybe 5-6 synonyms to describe what اكتحلنا, how do you say it? So in layman's, he says, we regret, we were consumed by this regret, and we have lost sleep over this. And when we went against you, we weren't the dominant force, and nor did we ولم نكن, how do you translate this? Subhanallah. He says, Subhanallah, لم نكن في ذلك برة أتقياء ولا فجرة أقوياء. We didn't overwhelm you, and nor did we lose in the sense. However, we regretted because we came out against you. So when he said these words, Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, he said, khalas, I'll let you go. This was known by Imam al-Sha'bi for his linguistic skills. He was very eloquent in speech and very witty, as I said. One time, a man came to him who was a student of knowledge, and he wanted to obtain some hadith from Imam al-Sha'bi. So he came riding a donkey. And he says, Salaam alaikum ya Shaykh. I have come to you from a distance, and I have rented this donkey for half a dirham, all to get one hadith and I'm tired, and I'm this, and I'm that. So Imam Shabi looked at him, he says, take your other half dirham, rent the other donkey, and go back. Because if you're here to tell me about your long journey and how you did all this, this is not how you deal with people of ilm, huh? He was asked once, he said, they asked him, they said, does shaitan have a wife? هل للشيطان زوجة؟ فقال ذلك عرس لم أحضره. He says, that is a wedding I didn't attend. That is a marriage I didn't attend. Yeah, you see his witty responses, because he was asked a lot of silly questions, but at the same time he would answer them after, but he would give you a witty response to sort of engage with you. And subhanAllah, when you joke with people, there is no shame in this. It's fine. Even the ulama do this. And the only thing that you need to stay away from is joking and telling lies. Telling lies. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam naha an dhalik. This is considered from the major sins, by the way. From the major sins, because it's tied with a punishment. He says, وَيْلٌ لِلَّذِي يُحَدِّثُ النَّاسِ وَيَكْذِبْ لكي يضحكهم كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم ويل له ثم ويل له ثم ويل له 3 مرات. He says, woe to him, the one who speaks to people, tells lies to make them laugh. Huh? He's telling lies, blatant, outright lies to make them laugh. ويل له ثم ويل له ثم ويل له 3 times. This is the worst of people. And if you notice, a lot of these comedians, all of their jokes are fabricated lies. He was praised once, rahmatullah alayh, and they said to him, Ya alim al-ulama, you're such a great scholar. فقال لا. He says, no. Al-alim alladhi yakhafu Allah. The scholars are those who fear Allah. The scholars are those who fear Allah. And this is just a brief insight into this man's amazing life. He lived about 79 years, I believe. And rahmatullah alayh, these were men who, as I mentioned, devoted their life for the ilm of this deen. And they spread it with such eloquence, with such character, and they practiced what they preached. And for us today, we have a lot of problems within our community. The fact that we look to the social media outlooks, posts and for our knowledge. This is wrong. We have, mashallah, people of knowledge within our community. وَلَسْتُ مِنْهُمْ. And I am not amongst them. I am a tulayyib. I am just a mere student. I'm only sharing with you what little knowledge I have. But if you have any questions that are deep and concerning, I have, mashallah, alhamdulillah, at my disposal, ulama who we can reach. And we need to learn our deen and practice this deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to obtain it from those who are thiqah, who are trustworthy, who follow the kitab and the sunnah. Barakallahu lana wa nas'al Allah أن ينفعنا بما سمعنا وأن يبارك لنا في هذا العلم ويجعلنا من الذين يثبتون على القرآن وعلى السنة. وسبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.